All right, it's 5 o'clock. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the September 9th, 2021 school committee meeting. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote and attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live on Facebook and recorded on ECAP. This meeting is open to the public. We'll take questions via the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Please make sure to include your full name and address. We will do our best to answer all the questions. However, we will not read questions that have already been answered. Welcome.
Recording in progress.
All right, so first on the agenda is the minutes from the regular meeting from Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. Anyone have questions, comments, edits? Nancy?
On page 2, about a quarter of the way down, maybe, Dr. Cabral said because the district has so many unwilling parents to have their children tested, it makes the results of any such testing completely obsolete. So first of all, we need to put in that that's pool testing, not the test and stay protocol. And I would like to move the word unwilling to after parents. So many parents unwilling to have their children tested. And someplace in there, pool testing has to go in.
Okay. Anyone else? Caroline?
I have a couple of very minor corrections on the, actually it's the question and answer section. So I think it's page 5. I mean, I was trying to scroll through everything, but it was a comment, it was a response that Dr. Cabral made to a comment from an individual about, you know, what metrics we're using and so on. It was actually a comment from Carrie Rapolo. And I just wonder if Dr. Cabral meant to say decisions at the end of her response instead of discussions. Do you see where I think it's page 5?
I don't see where you are. Can you just read that sentence, please?
You know what? I can't because I have to use this device for both things. I can go out and come back.
Caroline, I can tell her. So third comment down, Carrie Rapolo, the response, Dr. Cabral responded that she does not claim to be a mask expert. Her staff are not mask experts. They consult medical experts, and that is how they base their discussions. I believe it should be decisions.
Correct.
That's right. Okay. And the one right below that, there's just the first line. It just says, I think this is just a typo. It says, Dr. Cabral, it should say her instead of my day. Does that mean it's like the first line? It should say right. Her, me referring to Dr. Cabral, because the Director of Public Health was referred to as her. It was about their meetings together, but also I'm not quite sure that you meant whether you said this or meant to say this or whether it's a typo. But it says she said that she and the health agent met or talked, I'm sure, multiple times every day throughout the year. Did you mean multiple times every week, or did you mean literally that you met multiple times every single day throughout the school year?
On that issue, it was literally multiple times a day.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because that, I mean, I knew that you were having sometimes a couple of calls a day or whatever, but I didn't know that it was actually every single day. So I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes with the edits?
So moved.
O'Neill, second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Glassman, yes.
Star, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, and next up is the presentation of the Girl Scout Silver Award. And I just want to apologize to the Girl Scouts. It says on the agenda that we posted, Girl Scout Silver Badge, and it's not. It's a much bigger culminating event for them. And I should have caught that before I approved the agenda, so I do apologize, and I look forward to hearing about it. It's a really wonderful project. Dr. Cabral.
Thank you. We have guests with us this evening. We're fortunate to have Caitlin Peliquin and Ella Khaleesi from OA. They're brand new ninth graders, and they're members of Girl Scout Troop 80538. They are going to present their Silver Award project about female health, and the middle school nurse, Eileen Gardner, is here to present with them as well. So I welcome them. Lynn should be moving them over so that they are able to present, and I welcome them, and I will now turn it over to Mrs. Gardner.
Dr. Cabral, just to interject first before Mrs. Gardner goes, I do have their presentation here, so I'm going to share my screen and project it.
Perfect.
Hi, Ellen, Caitlin.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. This is such a breath of fresh air compared to COVID and masks. And, you know, I have to give these girls credit. They actually came to me in spring and asked if I would be their advisor for a project. And it was something that they were putting themselves in their journey through EMS. And this is actually female health is obviously something that affects 50% of our population. And it is a true, like one of those things as a 6th, 7th, or 8th grade girl that you worry about is about getting, getting your period in school. And, but they came up with a great way after going through the education that Corinne McCarthy, who has really done a great job with doing more on female health. The education starts in 5th grade. But then what ends up happening is you come to the middle school and it's like, okay, well, what happens? What happens if I get it here? It's kind of one of those things, nobody really talks about it. But I can tell you, like, as when I start my year and students first come in, I say, hey, did you know that this is where we keep the products? This is what happened in doing individual education. Well, this way we can now educate everybody, every female, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade about what to do in proper disposal. And I'm gonna be quiet, which for those of you who've known me is not super easy, but I'm going to let Caitlin and Ella take the lead and present and speak on it about why this was important to them. But I just think that this is great because it really it enhances our education, it scaffolds, and it really can help diminish anxiety, and it's layered on. So they'll tell you a little bit about the project, but basically anyone who uses a bathroom in the women's room in EMS will be able to see where you can get products, how to properly dispose of them. And they even made a donation of extra pants and undergarments that we have. So in the nurse's office, like a really good supply. I usually search for donations every year, but I'll tell you, this was one amazing thing to have taken off my plate. The girls provided it for us during COVID, and they put a lot of effort into this. And so I'm going to let them speak and do their presentation. Caitlin and Ella.
Thank you.
So proud of you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to meet with us. We are Girl Scout Troop 80538, presenting our Silver Award project. I'm Caitlin Peliquin.
I'm Ella Khaleesi.
Sorry about that. And we are presenting our Silver Award project, which deals with female health and wellness. Can I please have the next slide? We originally started this project when we noticed, due to a probable mistake or oversight, that several in the a few stalls in the middle school girls' restrooms lacked receptacles, and we decided to address this issue.
You can switch. All right. After we recognized the issue, we contacted the nurse to let her know about it. But we wanted to do more than just put receptacles in stalls that were lacking. We wanted to educate every female at EMS about proper disposal of period products and accessibility of period products at the school. So we ended up expanding our project to include educational signs, which would work hand in hand with reinforcing the district's social emotional learning goals. They would also layer onto the female health and wellness education in our schools.
Next slide, please. We also bought underwear and leggings in a variety of sizes and donated them to the nurses' stock. We purchased these items because being caught without supplies at any age, but especially when you're in middle school, can be extremely stressful. Next slide, please. The receptacles are ultimately paid for by the school. Their replacement should bolster the social emotional well-being of female students.
You can switch the slide. Thank you. We learned a lot on this project. It taught us about working together, helping one another, comparative shopping, interacting with companies, organizing projects, and even laminating posters, something I don't think a lot of kids our age know how to do. These experiences will help us quite a bit in our academic pursuits and our adult lives. You can switch the slide. We want to thank Mrs. Gardner, our project advisor, for all her help on this project and being so willing to assist us and give us advice. And we want to thank Mrs. Canty, Mrs. Pruitt, Mrs. Souza, and Mr. Carroll for all their help as well. We'd also like to thank our moms for supporting us in our ideas. And thank you all so much for taking the time to meet with us and let us speak. We're so glad to make an impact with our work. Are there any questions about our project?
Michelle?
Yep, I'm just scrolling. Jump in because I can't see everybody with the screen shared. Go ahead, Caroline.
Well, first of all, I so appreciate your coming up with this idea and implementing it. I think that it's going to benefit literally thousands of students in this future. So it's wonderful. I'm just wondering, can you tell me a little bit more about how the idea came to you? Like what, were you talking to friends? Were you just, was it from your own experiences? I'm just wondering, I love to hear how the light bulbs go off in above people's heads. So do you want to talk a little bit more about how that happened?
So originally in 6th grade, I think it was during MCAS, I got caught and ran into the bathroom and I went into a stall and there wasn't a receptacle. I knew to go and throw it out in the main trash can, but it kind of got me thinking, and then the idea kept sort of brewing in the back of my mind, I guess, and then I brought it up and we decided to do it, and then it sort of grew from there.
Okay, thank you.
Because
thank you for.
I also remembered. I also remembered that once.
Everyone's calling to tell you how good you're doing.
Now you know how your teachers feel during hybrid learning, and everyone is very sympathetic because they completely understand. So I am admiring your patience in dealing with any interruptions that are unexpected.
Thank you. I also remember that at some point or another, something happened with one of the bathrooms. I don't know what, but it's also a thing of having receptacles in every stall can benefit the plumbing in case someone doesn't know that you can't flush things.
Right.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yes, thank you. In fact, that's actually a big issue. And you might have saved us some big plumbing bills too. So thank you.
They actually in the sign, there will be one sign on the mirrors, so everyone who washes their hands will see it. But in each stall, they have the arrow pointing down where to put it, you know, where to dispose of feminine hygiene waste. But then on the back of each stall, so when you're sitting and using the restroom every day, you're going to see the signs they made were really cute. Do you mind just saying, Caitlin, reading? So there's 4 different signs. So no matter which bathroom is used, they'll get a little bit of a different information. They made one that says, if you leak, don't freak. And it had a picture of, they said, did you know that if you are caught without a pad or a tampon, that they're available in the nurse's office? And then it went on to say, and you don't have to ask directly for them if there's other people in the room. You can just say to her, I need to use the bathroom. And they're in a special receptacle. And they also, then there's one that explains that if you ever run into a problem, that there is extra clothing in the nurse's office. But then they also did a preparation poster saying, just remember, you know, to always have with you a pad and spare underpants in leggings in your backpack, because if you have them, you'll never need them. You know, it's kind of like you're all set unless you wear all white. And but they made them really cute, middle school appropriate. And you know, we looked at them, and I probably drove them crazy because I had them tweak different wording and fonts. So they got a taste of group work too, which is super fun. And that's a huge adult skill that you're going to be using, especially in your career at OA. But they put a lot of effort into it. And it's kind of like, I'm like, wow, this is actually, it's very impactful. I know that every female student at Easton Middle School has had this concern, and this is really going to go, it's a very subtle, repetitive education aspect. Really good public health is what it is. So I'm really, really proud of them.
Thank you.
You absolutely should be. I just want one final comment. Comparative shopping, that is going to stay with you forever. That's wonderful.
I think Gardner wishes I took that, dabbled in that a little bit more.
Anyway, thank you.
We're extremely proud of you, ladies. I don't know if our male friends will understand what a significant issue this is, most especially for teenagers and young women who are in middle school and high school. I've always told my own children growing up, see a need, fill it, and that's exactly what you did. And I hope you recognize the impact that 1 or 2 really dedicated people can bring, and that your peers are seeing this model that you have set and will do the same. When you see a need, fill it, and we want to help you do that. So the Silver Award is obviously a prestigious honor. We congratulate you on that, but we also thank you for your contributions to all of your classmates and really to the future students of Easton Middle School too, who you are also impacting. So thank you very much for getting involved and for helping them and helping us. We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Nancy?
Yeah, well, along that line, I thank you very much, ladies, and Mrs. Gardner. What can people do to help you? So have you already won this award, or can we make donations, or can the community make donations someplace for you? What's the next step?
I think, well, we just have to fill out a form to get the award now. I think the best thing to do would be to try to keep the ball rolling, to keep working on making sure that kids know what to do in most situations is probably the best thing, because it's not really about us, it's about the community.
Mm-hmm. I will invite the girls back.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I will invite the girls back to in my EMS health club. What we will do is one of our activities will be to make sure that those signs are still up there and replace any of them that become damaged. So, and we will invite Caitlin and Ella to come with us, because at health club, while spacing out, we usually end with a healthy snack, and we always end with a small piece of Dove chocolate, because a little bit of dark chocolate is super healthy for our hearts. So I know they'll be coming back, and I will make sure that the ball rolls and definitely invite them back to help us with that.
I have a question from a sustainability component. So when these girls are not part of the school anymore, how is that going to carry over year to year?
I will maintain it through the health club. I usually get a grant from, I still have a grant from Easton Wings of Hope. And so I will put that in the curriculum for my health club, and Mrs. McCarthy and I will continue it. And that will include maintaining the stalls and putting up, they have actually provided us with the copies of the actual, the templates for the signs. And I am not allowed near the laminator at Easton Middle School because everything I touch, I break. So they will do that for me, I know. And then, but as for the piece about replacing the clothes, we will probably look into doing some type of a donation drive for that. And we'll see where we're at the end of the year.
Thank you. And thank you, girls. What a wonderful project. Anyone else? Jen?
No questions, but I just wanted to congratulate you both. You did a great job on the project as a whole, and a fabulous job presenting. It's really, I have kids a little bit older than you, and I think for all the money in the world, they wouldn't have come to a school committee meeting to present this and talk about it. So you are incredibly poised and mature, and just wanted to congratulate you on that piece of this, which I'm sure is probably a little bit nerve-wracking, but you did a really great job presenting. So thank you, and thank you for thinking of a project that benefits your classmates at school. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good. All right. Thank you, ladies, for coming, and Mrs. Gardner for helping them organize and execute the wonderful project.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was my pleasure.
Great job, Ellen, Caitlin. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Chrissy. Bye, guys.
All right. Next up, vote to approve Greenwood Industries contract. Dr. Cabral or Mr. Trombley?
I'm just checking to see if Mr. Twombly is here.
Right here.
Yes, he's on.
There he is. So
In the flesh.
I will introduce Director of Operations, Mr. Twombly.
All right. So yeah, Greenwood Industries would like to award the metal siding and flashing project, which is over at Oliver Ames High School above the fitness center, to Greenwood Industries. This is a capital project. You may remember it was approved at town meeting. It's a chapter 30B in section 149, which deals with construction procurement. So we followed all the procurement steps. We worked with Ben Taylor and Jay Talaman's office to create the draft of the specifications. We also hired, as you may remember, Building Enclosure Associates, who wrote up the specs. So it was kind of a combination of myself, Ben Taylor, and Building Enclosure Associates writing the specifications. Greenwood Industries submitted their bid. They were the only company to submit a bid. We did have 2 or 3 other companies that expressed interest, but none of those submitted bids on this particular project. We plan to start this project as soon as possible. We'll probably have a kickoff meeting next week with Bill Matthews and the administration at the high school. And then once the project is completed, we'll make some repairs inside the fitness center. There's some walls that need to be repaired, but that'll be financed through our insurance company. Because if you may remember, we had water infiltrate from the roof, which came in through the siding and then into the fitness center, which caused some damage. So the total for this project is $244,000. Again, the town meeting had awarded the school department $300,000, I believe, for this project. So it's under the budget. And a motion to award the metal panel flashing repair project at Oliver Ames High School to Greenwood Industries would be the motion if you would like to. So I'll entertain any questions.
Nancy?
I have a question, David.
Sure.
So this, I was looking through all this paperwork. Is there a warranty on this after they do it? Like, how long is this supposed to last? You're spending $250,000. How long should this last?
I think,
Forever?
well, usually when you do a construction project, they'll give you at least a year for a warranty. So this year, so when,
Well, you know what I mean. Like, how long should this last?
well, hopefully it lasts a long time. I mean, a lot longer than the particular, like what happened here previously. But
Yeah.
I think there were some changes in administration. I mean, I wasn't here when the high school was completed, but the water came in and we worked with our insurance company. The insurance company would only cover the damage inside the fitness center. They said to us that we had to repair what was on the exterior. So that's why it's kind of taken a long time, because we had to do like some investigating. If you may remember, Building Enclosure Associates, we hired them originally. They did almost like a hurricane test where they actually recreated a hurricane to figure out where the water was coming from. Because originally when it first started, when I first arrived here, we thought it was coming from the roof. Then we started looking at the siding. So it's been a really long project. This thing's been leaking at least since I've been here, I think. I mean, it's just, it's been unbelievable. But I feel like we're kind of coming to the end, and I'm really looking forward to getting Greenwood here. And the other thing I want to say about Greenwood Industries is they did a fantastic job. If you may remember, they installed the roof over at the Richardson Olmsted School a couple of years ago, and they were really good to work with. Matt Brown and his crew were really good. And so I'm really looking forward to working with this group again.
So this is just for that fitness center area. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
that
above,
little,
on the
that
roof.
little workout area off the atrium, right?
Yeah, it's on the roof. It's there's a siding at it's kind of like a pop-up. If you go on the roof above the fitness center, there's a pop-up and there's siding on there, and the water is getting in, whether it's through the flashing or what. There's some weep holes in there that allows water in. Some of them may be blocked. So basically, going to take all that siding off, and they're going to put new siding on, and they're also going to put up some new insulation and stuff behind that, and then recaulk it. So it's a pretty extensive job. I don't think it should take very long, to be honest with you, once we start up. But yeah, it's an important job because, again, the fitness center has a little bit of work that we have to do inside there, which I've already talked to the DPW, and we're so lucky that we have a good DPW. John Cuzzy, everybody knows him as Bubba. He does a fantastic job, and he's already talked to me about getting that work done. So, I mean, you guys are really lucky. I mean, a lot of other towns, everything's kind of separate, and you have to go out for an electrician, or you have to go out and get a landscaper or an HVAC person. Here, at least you have internal people that can do some of this work, which really saves a lot of money.
Thank you.
That's good. Well, when the high school got reconstructed about 15 years ago, remodeled. So I just feel like, you put money in and then it breaks or whatever, but that's not your problem. I'm just asking.
No,
So,
actually,
okay, so
I have one thing. I was going to say one thing that you may remember this too from the new school building project. We're actually, for that project, to avoid what we're happening with this particular instance, we're hiring an external commissioning agent, which is going to go through the exterior of the building to make sure they're going to do testing on all the windows, the doors, the siding, the brickwork, and they're going to basically spray it with water to make sure that no water is infiltrating. They do like a building envelope commissioning. So they have a commissioning of all the mechanical systems, but they'll also have a commissioning of the building and envelope, which will hopefully avoid some of these issues that we had with roofing and siding at the high school. So I think that's a great thing for the new school. And that was one of the reasons why we really pushed for that.
That is making progress. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have questions? Comments? All right. Would someone like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the contract for Greenwood Industries to fix the leak at the high school.
All right, is there a second?
Wiseman, second.
All right, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, great. Have a great night, everybody. Take
You
care.
too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Twombly.
Bye.
All right. Next, about personnel changes, retirements for an adjustment counselor at OA and a paraprofessional at Parkview. Dr. Cabral.
Thank you. We have, as you mentioned, 2 retirements. The first is a beloved adjustment counselor at Oliver Ames. Pam Healy was hired in 2008 as an adjustment counselor. She worked first in Easton Middle School. She received her professional teaching status in 2011. In 2017, she transferred to Oliver Ames, and she is retired as of June 17th after spending 13 years at the middle school. And I do say beloved because you're aware that that is a very unique position that requires not only experience and knowledge and background, but a certain personality and temperament. And Ms. Healy was excellent at her job and going above and beyond to provide for both the students and the staff at the high school and the middle school. And we thank her very much for her service and congratulate her in her retirement.
Okay, and I have a letter from her. Hi, Teresa. I hope this email finds you well and you're enjoying some free time this summer. I'm emailing you to notify you of my decision to not return as an adjustment counselor at Easton Public Schools in the fall. After much contemplation and consideration, I've come to the conclusion that as a newly minted grandmother of a granddaughter that I would like to be able to visit in California, the primary caretaker of my 92-year-old mom, I needed to reevaluate my priorities. It has been a difficult decision for me to execute, but I intuitively know it's best for myself and my family. I need to have the flexibility to take my mom to her healthcare appointments and to travel to the West Coast to see my family. My hope is that by alerting you to this decision, you will have time to fill the position and have him, her or him, they up and running before the end of the summer. I'm here to help with that process if you need me. I want to thank you for your kind words and support over the years, and I wish you much satisfaction, happiness, and success in the upcoming year and beyond. I'll be reaching out to my coworkers to let them know of my decision immediately. Again, thank you for your support, Pam. And Nancy?
Sorry. So Pam was in an office next to me at the Easton Middle School. We've been on field trips together. I've seen her in action working at the Easton Middle School. Very nice woman, and I wish her all the best.
Anyone else? All right. We need to vote on these separately, correct? Yeah, okay. So would someone like to make an motion to accept the retirement of Pam?
I move to accept the retirement of Pam Healy, but with much regret.
All right, we have a second?
Star, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Great, thank you. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. The second staff member is Joanne Keach. She was hired in 2010 as a part-time paraprofessional at Moreau Hall. Prior to working as a paraprofessional, she worked in the special education office part-time until 2018. In 2012, she transferred from Moreau Hall to a paraprofessional position at Center School. She is finishing at Parkview School now and just retired on August 23rd. As I noted, she did work in the special education office that was in central office. And so we had the pleasure of working alongside Joanne for several years. And it was a pleasure. Not only did she serve the students very well in the programs for which she served, but she also was a great coworker and someone that we really enjoyed having in the office. So we wish her very much health and happiness in her retirement as well.
Her letter. Dear Sam, I write this letter to announce my retirement from Easton Public Schools effective today, August 23rd, 2021. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Easton Parkview school system. Please let me know if there's anything I need to do during this transition period. Sincerely, Joanne Keach. comments? Nancy?
My hand is up again. Surprise, surprise. Joanne, awesome, had great kids. Her own children are great, and she's such a wonderful person. I remember her being up at Special Services working. It seems like she was always working someplace. So I wish her the best in her retirement because she deserves it.
Well, all right, can I get a motion to accept the retirement of Joanne Keach?
So move with regret.
A second?
Wiseman, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant's yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Dar, yes.
Great, thank you. I wish them well. All right, next is discussion and possible vote to change several days for upcoming school committee meetings, days or times. So in my position, I have 4 work conflicts. I thought it was more, but then when I looked at the schedule, I think we're down to 4. September 30th, October 14th, October 28th, and November 18th. And so what I'm wondering is, I have a commitment that runs 3:15 to 6:15. I'm wondering if we could either move those 4 meetings to 6:30 or change the date, or if somebody has an idea. It's something that I can't get out of, unfortunately, so we kind of need a solution.
If we moved it to 6:30, does that give you enough time?
Yeah, because it's Zoom, so
Okay.
I would be able to come home from work, I'll Zoom into that commitment for those 3 hours, and then I can just switch to our Zoom. So yes, but I don't know.
I'm fine with it.
I know it
Yeah.
also affects, Chrissy and Leisha and Lynn too, so as well as us.
I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously it'll be totally Chrissy and Alicia's decision, but possibly they would have time to get home and then could Zoom from home instead of from their offices. So maybe it wouldn't be quite as much of a challenge, they wouldn't have to stay here in Easton as late, just an idea. I mean, I have no problem at all with the switch myself, but my first thought was that meant that Chrissy and Leisha would be working much later for those 4 days. But I really don't know why I'm speaking for you, Leisha and Chrissy.
And Lynn.
Completely inappropriate.
It's very nice of you to think of us. We will make whatever work that needs to work. We're used to late nights. We'll make it work, whatever is the desire of the school committee. But thank you for thinking of us. That was very kind of you.
How about Lynn? Is she allowed to comment? I just don't want anyone to be, if everyone's okay with it, that would be great. But
When is the new teacher, not the new teacher, professional status? Is that the 9th? No, that's not tonight. Is that September 30th, October 14th? What day is that?
Good question.
Checking.
For some
Just
reason,
to-
I don't
Just
have
to
it
point out that
on my calendar.
pre-COVID, our meeting started at 6:30. So
Right.
for me personally,
Right.
it doesn't make a difference.
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the earlier start time, not gonna lie, but but it's totally fine.
Are we waiting to check the professional status?
I'm checking it.
I
I don't
just-
know if Lynn has it. I'm not seeing it in my school calendar.
I
It's
couldn't
usually-
find it.
It's usually the first October meeting
Right.
of the month,
It
which
is,
would
but
be the 14th.
it's not.
That is what it usually is, but maybe we haven't officially put it on the calendar yet.
Yeah, I don't see it on the calendar, so it may not be on there yet.
Well, what I was going to
Lynn is
say
saying
is
that it will be
that's-
October 14th. She hasn't scheduled it yet, but it would have been October 14th. We can change that if that's necessary.
Well, what I was going to say is, as much as you'd want to be there, Michelle, the October, you know, just if we're going to start the meeting at 6:30, we could do the professional status like at 6 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? I think it's either a half hour, an hour before.
Don't we usually do it
An hour
before the meeting?
before. We could do it on what? I'm sorry, what?
I thought we normally do this professional status before our meeting, right?
That's right. Yep.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Just, we would still do it ahead. You just you wouldn't be able to be there. And I feel bad about that.
Is it in person this year?
Well, that's why, oh, I thought I was muted. That's why we haven't scheduled it yet, because we haven't determined that. We need to look at the list and see how many people we have and how many guests we anticipate. So it may be virtual.
So if we change these to 6:30 for now, and once you decide what that's going to look like, we can revisit the 14th. Does that work for everyone?
Yes, I mean, I do think if it could be done virtually, I think most of those types of meetings are being done virtually this year. You know, certainly anytime we can reduce risks of based on gatherings and things like that, we probably ought to. But that's obviously your call, administration's call.
Okay. So do we need to officially vote to change those times?
You do.
Okay.
And then we will repost it on our website. And
All right. So I haven't heard any objection. Last chance.
No, it's good.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion to change the meeting start times of September 30th, October 14th, October 28th, and November 18th to 6:30. I have
O'Neill, second.
roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
And yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, thank you. All right. District updates, Dr. Paul.
thank you. So we have sent out, well, actually, I'm going to go in reverse order if that's okay. We did have a dismissal today at Easton Middle School. So probably parents that have children at the Easton Middle School and certainly staff members would be aware of it. It did not affect any other schools. However, we did have a loss of power that NGrid had projected would be a lengthy repair. It required a lot of investigation. Only the middle school had lost power, and it was possible that we weren't going to have power tomorrow either. However, we were very fortunate, and we are thankful to NGrid for their work, and they were able to find the cause of the issue, and so the power is back on now, but we did need to dismiss the students at the middle school. So I definitely want to acknowledge that we had two situations where there was miscommunications with parents out of over 900 students. One is too many. One was of concern, one was a minor incident, but we very much want to make sure that everyone knows that we are extremely vigilant about situations like this. We take the opportunity to learn from every single situation, and certainly have learned from this one as well. I do want to credit the staff and all of the patient parents who chose to pick up their children and came to the school. The staff did an excellent job of making sure that the children were calm and that they were taken to their respective areas in a safe way, because we also have the additional challenge of COVID. Normally, we don't typically dismiss for power outages. It's just that this one was going to be an extended delay. We still had not had, we had 2 lunch periods where The students still needed to go downstairs and get their grab and go lunches. We didn't want them eating in the cafeterias because we don't have windows in the cafeteria. And of course, the ventilation in that area was not working because of the electricity issue. We also have bathrooms that do not have generator lighting in them. They don't have windows. They would have been closed. Many reasons. They're different for every physical space, and certainly developmentally, they're different as well. For grades 6 and up, the standard protocol always is to notify parents of the dismissal and to dismiss students in their normal pattern of dismissal. If it's up to grade 5, if there's an early dismissal, we always delay dismissal and we have parents come and pick up their children. So we have done that before, and that has been the protocol. Since this age is sort of a middle age and certainly represents the beginning of the age that the state generally considers the age to not only not need to have someone at a bus stop waiting for a child, but also to have children return to their homes. We do want to look over that protocol, certainly for 6th graders and any special circumstances. We have discussed, I have not discussed this with the cabinet yet, so we have only debriefed as a district and determined what areas could use improvement and where things went well. And so we will have that conversation at our cabinet meeting and talk about potentially having a system where parents can elect for their student to stay instead of take a bus home if they typically go home on the bus. But again, that information will be forthcoming because we have not discussed it as a full cabinet yet. And certainly I want to get the input of the other experts on the team. We also, I don't know if it was because of the weather or because of the technology that we use, which is School Messenger, or if it was due to the outage. But I did send the message before dismissal, and there was a delay in the message. I couldn't stop the message. I couldn't send the message again. And fortunately, it did go through, but the initial calls started at the dismissal time. And so parents were notified at 12:15. There actually was a setting on there. I never set settings. I always send them, but the setting was earlier than that as well. So we do have a technology issue that we're working on. It's great to have the system, certainly, but sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. So we are also working on that issue simultaneously. We also had a small window, of course, because the buses did need to make a complete run and come back in time for the high school and then every level after that. So all in all, certainly the staff did an extraordinary job, and I'm very pleased and I'm very proud of them. Administratively, we are going to work out any kinks that we have. These are always opportunities for us to see what can be improved in the event of an emergency situation where we had to evacuate students quickly. So we take every opportunity as a learning opportunity, and certainly this is one of those. The second item is just the sort of normal COVID update. The playbook was released to all parents and staff. I have been adding frequently asked questions to the end of it. So if you've read the whole thing and you feel as though you have more questions, I would encourage people to keep checking that. But as always, please contact your school building administrator immediately if you have any specific questions. Some questions are unique to a particular school or grade band or a physical space. And so it's really best to get the answers from the principal. But we certainly want to make sure that we're expeditious and thorough in our answers. Truly, the principal is the best route for that, but we will always help direct you if necessary and provide any information that we have that is helpful for parents trying to navigate the schools during this still somewhat unusual time. But I will say that I was able to get to more schools, and it is overwhelming, frankly, how excited the children are to be back in the schools. They are calling it normal, which is kind of unusual to me because I'm seeing everyone with masks on their faces, and I of course have a mask on. But compared to last year, this seems normal to people. It seems normal to staff. It seems normal to the kids that have approached me and the ones that I have approached and talked to about this. It is wonderful to see them laughing together, playing outside without their masks on, and just being able to manipulate materials again. It's been a wonderful sort of cathartic experience after what everybody has endured last year, to see us making significant progress. There's still progress to be made, and we're working on that. We will continue to work on that as much as the mandates and frankly the virus allows us to. And so we thank everyone for their unbelievable amount of cooperation and support during this time in helping us to make the safest possible spaces for our kids and for our staff. Those are the updates for this evening. Certainly, if you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Nancy?
Dr. Cabral, we used to be on, I thought we were, so when a notice would go home through email or whatever to the kids, I know we're not parents, although Jackie is in this case, and then Jen at the high school, but you know, we used to get notified by and I think it was just maybe, well, probably not last year, but the year before, you know, just to know about this EMS situation, and that, you know, because then all of a sudden people are calling us or emailing us,
Sure.
and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So can we get on the list that needs, you know?
Yes,
for
you
each
are
school?
actually, the school committee is actually on the full list. So when something goes out to the entire district, you get that. So now, again, this is a perfect opportunity, right, for us to be able to rework our systems. We've only recently made those lists to be just for particular schools. It's usually the principal that sends something out through schools. So now we will go back to each of our school lists, and we'll make sure that every school committee member is added to each of the school lists as well. In this case, only the middle school received the notification. So that's why the school committee wasn't on it, but we can easily rectify that by putting you on the individual school lists as well. In fact, I think this is the first time I've utilized an individual school list, but we were obviously trying to help the middle school when they were in the midst of trying to get things in order, which they did very well.
And this rarely happens. This is, you know, like.
No, but thank you for pointing it out. That's very helpful for us to know those kinds of things so that we can make that adjustment in our system. So thank you.
I mean, I just feel like as our role as a school committee person here, that, you know, people do reach out to us and say, well, what's, you know, what's going on here? How come you don't know what's going on?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was
Right,
going
and
to
of course
say,
we don't have an opportunity to call people during that time because we're trying to expedite things. So the path that makes the most sense is the actual school messenger. So I do appreciate you pointing that out.
Thank you. And the other thing, now the bus drivers, do they have them, like, does the manager have them on speed dial that they could come right, you know, get back here right now, we need you, and you know, were they doing highway runs?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because Lucini was really, Lucini Transportation was extraordinary. Michelle Doolittle, the dispatcher, and every single one of the drivers was just fantastic. They, as you know, they were not working at that time because it was in the middle of our runs. She did put out an all call to all of them, and they actually got there far sooner than we anticipated. We had buses lined up and waiting, and we had to sort of hold off until we let the students go because the messages were just going out. So they were tremendous, and we are extremely thankful to all of them and to Michelle for their extraordinary work today also. Thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
And I will just add a final note to that. And that's why every situation is unique. In another on another date with another grade level, or perhaps at a different time of the day, we may not have been able to do it this way. So every single situation is really unique, and you know, determining how to have 900 students sort of navigate and get home safely is tremendously overwhelming. But as I said, they did a great job, and where we didn't do a great job, we will definitely do better.
Thank you. All right, public comments.
There is one public comment, however, it does have some information that might be identifiable to a student. So I'd rather, I'm seeking permission to summarize the public comment, if that's okay.
It's okay with me.
Yeah, I'm sure the person isn't wishing to disclose,
Correct.
but they may not be aware of how sometimes things can be identifiable. So I think that would be a good idea. But please make sure you maintain as much of the intent as possible.
Sure. So this is from Richard Fuller, 949 Washington Street. Richard is sharing a story about a student who was dropped off via the bus and was unsupervised. This particular student, in his opinion, needs more supervision. And as a parent, he was very horrified and wondering, how did this happen and what is being done to prevent this from happening in the future?
This was a student that this situation just happened to today.
Correct.
Yes, and that is the situation that I was discussing, and we did rectify that situation. It is definitely not going to happen again, and we appreciate you for assisting in that instance. That is highly unusual, and there are some situational details that could actually explain that a little better, but I can't actually share that, but we will definitely make sure that that is clarified with the family. Thank you very much for assisting the student today.
Dr. Cabral, if I may add, one important thing that Dr. Cabral did mention is that after every situation, an urgent situation like this occurs, meaning the dismissal of EMS at a very fast pace, we do debrief, and we were able to have a short debrief. We didn't debrief with the entire cabinet, but with some of the administrators, and this is something that we recognize needed to be rectified, and action steps are being taken so that things like this do not occur. But that's just important for everyone to know, that we do always circle back and say, okay, what didn't occur? What were we missing? So that these things can be fixed in the future. And we're very, very fortunate that everyone is okay and home safely. But this is something that we take extremely seriously, and we will ensure that this does not happen ever again.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is from Tom Corey, 59 Arbor Way. With concern to elevated CO2 rates, how often are students given mask breaks? Also, we all have learned over the last year and a half that COVID transmission is very unlikely with great ventilation, and even more so outdoors. We've seen other towns and schools teach outside at times last year using tents, etc. What is Easton doing to try and reduce mask fatigue and allow our kids to breathe outdoors? Is there any attempt to have any classes at all outdoors?
Thank you. Those are great questions. Yes, of course, we try to have class outdoors whenever possible. The same is, it's definitely true for physical education, for just mask breaks, lunch, recess, and so forth. We have done a lot of research on elevated CO2 levels. Unfortunately, there's some misleading information that is available about CO2 levels. And so certainly I won't address any particular articles. I know some school committee members that probably will, but there is some misinformation, and we are certainly aware of the information from particularly the experts that we have in Massachusetts and through DESE. There is not a significant concern with the masking, especially the masks that the school committee has in their policy for students to use. The molecules for CO2 go through the masks. I realize there are some videos and so forth of people using measuring devices for CO2, but that again is going to happen when you are exhaling on a device. At any rate, we certainly agree about the ventilation. In fact, today, because we didn't have proper ventilation in the cafeteria and 300 students were scheduled to be in there, that is why we dismissed school, because we could not have that happen elsewhere in the building. We do have air purifiers in every space when the power is on. And so clearly we do take ventilation seriously, because dismissal is not an easy decision, and I do not take that kind of a decision lightly, but certainly because of this particular building and these particular spaces and this time of day, it was warranted. As far as tents, we've asked every principal about using tents. We did not find that they were needed at the schools. Last year, we certainly tried many different ways to get them. This year, we went as far as getting quotes for them. We certainly could get them, but the staff felt that the way they were managing the outdoors at this time was not necessary to use the large event tents that were available. If they become necessary, then we certainly can pursue that and we can get those. But we leave that as a school decision based on, again, their needs, developmental needs of the students there, and the activities that they're going to conduct. And yes, we're still making use of mask breaks for mask fatigue. That has always been the case and continues to be the case. I think I answered all of your questions, but please let me know if I didn't.
Jackie?
Oh, I was just going to say, I was actually on the school campus yesterday near RO and EMS, and I saw a lot of students outside, either with their teachers, mask breaks. Some of them seem to actually be having class outside too. So that was good to see.
There are, again, I know I say it a lot, but every situation is unique. And there are areas where children are eating outside regularly. There are some schools, there's one school, for example, where they started eating outside and it just wasn't possible because of coverage. We have far less staff this year for outside eating, but that is a large school. It's Richardson Olmsted. They're able to separate the students in other areas of the building. And so they're not eating all crammed into a cafeteria, or certainly not as they have been in the past. They're in other spaces of the building and around the building, and they are spaced out quite well. I was there yesterday during lunch, and they do a great job. So I don't want people to think that if students aren't outside, they aren't getting properly spaced. We are still doing that, utilizing all the indoor spaces that we have as well.
That is all the public comment we have at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, one more just came in.
Okay.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. Do we have an update regarding the test and stay program? Do we have the tests yet? What are the various components of the program and which ones have not been delivered?
Okay, thank you. So Mrs. Pruitt, I'm gonna talk about this if that's okay. She was going to discuss this in Assistant Superintendent Notes, but I think it's appropriate to discuss now. So thank you for the question. We have been in trainings with CIC. CIC is the company that has been hired to provide testing services throughout the Commonwealth. It's a contract through from DESE, and every district is supposed to receive a program coordinator. They have told us that they're overwhelmed with the amount of requests that they had to participate in the program. And so they had a lack of program coordinators. Easton is just getting one this week. They're telling us that our tests are going to come next week. We do have tests that just came in at the high school only. The others are going to be today, came in today. The others are going to be at the other schools, they tell us, by the beginning of next week. However, and this is a really important point, Mrs. Sheehan, so thank you for asking. It's extremely, extremely important that parents watch for the consent forms for the testing, because no student will be allowed to participate unless they have the electronic or assigned hard copy of the consent form. Electronic is the easiest way to do it. If you need a written consent form, your school can send one home for you to sign. You will need one for each child, even if they're in the same building. And we have been told that verbal consent is not acceptable. So unfortunately, if your child is in the nurse's office, they're symptomatic, for example, and they're asking for a parent to pick them up. If you ask the nurse to test them, they will not be able to if you don't have a consent form. You cannot give that verbal consent over the phone. You would have to jump on a computer and give the electronic consent, or come into the school and sign a hard copy. We are participating in 2 programs. One is symptomatic, as I said. Any student who is unvaccinated and has, unvaccinated or vaccinated, who has symptoms, is going to be tested for COVID if they have a consent form on file. We will be starting the testing once we have the majority of consent forms. Because they're electronic, they typically come in very quickly. So we can start that testing as soon as we have students who come in that have consent forms on file. That is, it's in the playbook, but I'll review it very briefly. It is 5 day, it's a 7-day process, 5 of which obviously are in school, hopefully, unless there's a day off. Students are encouraged not to participate in activities on weekends when they're not being tested, but for the 5 days that they're in school, when they receive a negative test, they can continue going to school. So 5 days of testing. Mrs. Pruitt?
That's the test and stay program. I think you were starting with the symptomatic.
Oh, thank you. Okay, you're right. The test and stay program, it's 7 days. They test for 5 out of the 7 days because 2 are presumed to be a weekend or days not in school. And if, as the child tests negative each day, they can remain in school. So that is for unvaccinated close contacts. I apologize for the confusion. This is why we write it down and put it in a playbook, because it becomes a blur. And so unvaccinated close contacts will now not have to stay home from school as long as they have the consent form and as long as they keep getting negative tests. As soon as a student is positive or as soon as they show symptoms, then they are dismissed from school. And then the nurse fills you in on the protocol at that point. The symptomatic testing, excuse me for any confusion, the symptomatic testing is for anyone who presents symptoms. They report to the nurse's office and they're tested. All of these tests are Binax Now rapid antigen 15-minute tests. They're not the gold standard of testing. They're simply to help our nurses make an educated decision about whether a student should stay during testing stay or whether a student's symptoms are very mild and they receive a negative test, they may decide to send them back to class. Or if they're more than mild and they're consistent with COVID, whether they receive a positive test or a negative test, symptomatic students or staff will go home with the information of whether the child was positive or negative for the rapid test. But that test would still need to be followed up with a PCR test, which now, fortunately, are extremely, are very easily available at Walgreens, CVS, and so forth. So it is really important that parents do get a PCR clearance and a nurse clearance before returning to school if they are symptomatic. Another possibility also in the playbook is if a student is symptomatic and they see their primary care physician and the physician gives them an alternate diagnosis. So for example, the child's allergies are causing their symptoms. In those cases, we can allow students to matriculate back into school. So those are the two programs. It's important to note that the consent form comes from the state, the electronic consent form, and on it, it does include a third test that we will not be using in Easton. That test is a group test. It formerly was known as pooled testing. We are not participating in that. So your consent does not include that. We are publicly stating that your consent does not include that. We will not be doing pooled testing. If we are going to do pooled testing, we will send out a separate consent form for pooled testing, but we're not doing that at this time.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. Sorry, one more question. Will parents be informed when their child is tested at school, and will parents receive the results of each test?
Yes, they will. Well, if they're in test and stay, then they're automatically getting tested for 5 days. You would be consenting to that with the consent form if you choose to. If they have a positive test, they will be sent home. So otherwise it's a negative test. If they're symptomatic and they're sent home, regardless of whether it's positive or negative, yes, the nurse will certainly inform you of that as well, because we want to give you as much information as possible to make the best choices for your children.
Carrie Rapolo, 5 Crystal Lane. Will vaccinated children also be tested?
Any person who is symptomatic will be tested, whether they are vaccinated or not. For close contacts, the state policy right now for test and stay program is only unvaccinated students who are within 3 feet. That is all that we're authorized to test at this time.
Tara Delamere, 8 Winnicott Way. If a student has to start testing on a Wednesday for 3 days of the test and stay, and then the weekend they don't test at school, obviously, are they able to go back on Monday without testing? Or they continue testing Monday and Tuesday, which would be 6th and 7th day?
Thank you very much. That's a great clarifying question. They're tested for 5 out of 7 days. So if, for your example, which is a great example, Wednesday, Thursday, if Wednesday's the first day, this is again, test and stay. And so it's for asymptomatic, unvaccinated students. So they're not vaccinated, they don't have any symptoms. They would test at school Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They would not participate in any school-related activities for that Saturday and Sunday only, because they're not getting tested by the school on that day. Monday, they would come to school and be tested again. And if they're negative, they stay. Tuesday, they would come to school, be tested right away. If they're negative, they stay. And then they just watch for symptoms for the remaining days up until 14 days. We do, and it is in the protocol, it is in the playbook, we do want to try to get a system in the future. This is particularly important, I think, for students and activities. We do hope to eventually, but we do not have it yet, we do hope to have a testing called EMED, which is the same idea, but it is able to be administered on weekends. So students don't have to miss out on extracurricular activities or sports or performances. But we do not have that yet. We're trying to get the test and stay in place first. I know it is frustrating for a student to miss 2 days of activities, but it's a huge stride from last year, and we hope to make the next huge stride, which is to get that weekend testing in place. But we do not have that yet. And test and stay will be done first. When test and stay starts, EMED does not start automatically. We'll do that as soon as we possibly can.
Dr. Cabral, just for clarification, would that include activities that are outside If a school activity is outside, would the child still not be able to participate?
I'm going to have to check with the Board of Health on that.
Erica Mandel, 50 Main Street. So if we don't fill out the form, we don't have to do anything else to say we don't consent.
Yes, you are correct. You don't have anything else to do. If your child is a close contact or they are symptomatic, they will follow the traditional protocols, and the nurse will dismiss your child and speak to you about what the appropriate days are, same as they were last year. That's perfectly fine. Parents don't have to choose to test at all. There's a protocol in place for that as well. Even if a parent doesn't want to get a PCR test, there are different dates for that. They're all in the playbook. So you do not have to do anything if you don't consent to testing.
Tara Delamere, Winnicott Way, will the high school students be swabbing themselves for test and stay, as they currently swab themselves at other test sites?
So this test is the very shallow swab, nasal swab. We are being told by DESE that students ages 5 and up are able to self-administer with supervision. So we have not done it yet, but we will see. Certainly unique situations come into play. If we feel as though a child is not capable of doing that themselves, we will help them, of course. But as of now, it is considered a self-administered test with direct supervision from a trained adult in all instances.
Carrie Rapolo, 5 Crystal Lane. Considering all the breakthrough variants, my concern is with not testing the vaccinated kids when they could have COVID and not know it and spread it.
Yes, I completely understand your concern. The state has told us that through their consultation with the Massachusetts medical experts that they are confident that the spacing, the masking, and the disinfection that we have in place is enough to mitigate that. They're not providing us with the tests for that, but certainly if you have a concern for your child, we always say that, you know, you need to do what your parent instinct tells you to do as far as testing or keeping your child home. And so certainly we will help accommodate your wishes for your own child, but you are absolutely right. The vaccinated students do not right now, qualify for test and stay under the state's program.
Maria Pacanzi, 5 Wedgewood Drive. Why are vaccinated and unvaccinated treated differently when both groups can get COVID?
Yeah, again, I understand that concern. We would be happy to test everyone, but we receive these tests from the state. We are not purchasing them. We're getting them for free. I don't believe they're going to send us the tests for that. We, in our continued trainings, certainly can ask about that. Perhaps if we show them that we have a successful program, they will help us with that. But I certainly can't guarantee that. They're already having trouble getting this first set out to us. But again, based on the medical guidance that the Commissioner of Education is getting, they do believe that this is warranted for students who are unvaccinated, and that with the proper ventilation, masking and distancing and disinfection that we're doing, that the vaccinated students should not be as much of a risk as the unvaccinated students. That is the guidance that we're getting from the state right now.
Tara Delamere, Winnicott Way. Sorry if you already covered this. If the test and stay comes back positive, which could be a false positive, if they get a PCR test that's negative, can they return to school with the negative PCR test?
Yes, thank you for your question. It's fine. I repeat things all the time. It's perfectly fine. We want to clarify as much as we can. If the test comes back positive, you're right, it could be a false positive. That is why we do ask everyone to follow up with a PCR test. We don't have those to administer, unfortunately. And so, yes, if it's negative, there is a protocol to follow so that you can be cleared by the school nurse to come back. So certainly, you know, you would speak to your school nurse about that. And that's exactly why we ask students to follow up with a PCR. And so that's exactly what we would recommend.
And that is all we have right now. Oh, another one just came in. Kerry Rapolo, 5 Crystal Lane. I just want all the parents to know that the school nurses have access to your children's vaccination record when it pertains to COVID.
That's correct. The MIS system is a state system. It falls under HIPAA rules and protocols. I don't have access to it. Mrs. Pruitt doesn't, but our school nurses do. They check it for things like flu vaccine and other vaccines. That's how we determine how students can enter school, because we do have state laws about certain vaccines. So I don't think there's a question, but if that's just a comment, yes, that is correct.
And also just to add that when a child gets vaccinated, the parent has to consent to have that information be a part of the system. So if the parent does not consent, then the information is not shared in that system. So there may be a student who's vaccinated who necessarily isn't in that system.
Right. So if a parent would need to provide a vaccination card if you were looking to show the school nurse or school personnel that your child is vaccinated if it's not in the system.
Right. Tara Delamere, Winnicott Way. If the test and stay falls on a weekend, can we buy the Buy Next Now tests at CVS and perform at home on the weekend and show proof of test?
Another good question. We've asked all of these, not to pat ourselves for good questions, but we did ask all of these questions. And so thank you for allowing me to clarify that. You can get Buy Next Now tests at CVS, for example, and certainly you could do them on your own, but we are unable to accept that as verification to participate in sports or activities at this time. I wish we could. Unfortunately, we just can't do that. It has to be administered by school staff. If we ever evolve from that to a place where people can take it home and do it, that would be great. But right now we're just trying to get the test and stay and symptomatic testing during school in place. Then we want to work on the eMed, and then perhaps we could do that. But it's premature at this point, and we don't have the ability to do that right now, but thank you for the question.
Maria Pacanzi, 5 Wedgewood Drive. Is it a judgment call by staff that a close contact has occurred? Do you have video proof of over 15 minutes without a mask at less than 3 feet?
No, I certainly trust my educators and the students themselves. I don't think parents would want children videoed 24 hours a day. There are certainly areas of the school that students have privacy, and we don't want video cameras, and we don't have them in classrooms. So yes, it is judgment by professional staff that have been trained in this information and know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. And I absolutely trust their determination.
And it is also by seating chart, and the fact that, you know, we do measure between the seats. So there are some classrooms that are under 3 feet, unfortunately. But however, we don't have the option to go remote. So the commissioner has said that we need to be in person. So therefore, there are a couple classrooms throughout the district that are less than 3 feet. And in those classrooms, we know that the children, if they're in attendance, will be considered close contacts under 3 feet in those instances.
Michelle?
I just want to clarify, I'm looking at this question. She's mentioning without a mask, but it's 3 feet with a mask. It's not that it has to be without a mask to be considered a close contact.
Oh,
correct.
No, you're right. It's with a mask. If they're outside without a mask, it's less than 3 feet. Like there is no close contact tracing outside without a mask.
Correct. And that's all we have right now.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent notes.
I don't have any additional ones right now.
Okay. Assistant superintendent notes.
So I just wanted to start off by informing you of our entitlement grants. I know that Dr. Cabral talked about the survey that went out as far as our ESSER 3 funds. However, there are grants that we receive yearly, annually. The Title I grant, Title IIA grant, and Title IVA grant. Those are all Title I is for our students that are are economically disadvantaged, that might be in a high risk category. We typically use that grant funding to provide support in the form of interventionists. That number came in and it is 6,427 less than it was last year. So the total amount is $140,037. You'll see that all of our grants, our entitlement grants, have gone down this year. So we are fortunate that we do have some of the funding through ESSER 3, as we will be utilizing that. We are anticipating utilizing that for intervention. And after looking at a lot of the results that are already coming in from the survey, that is definitely predominantly something that the public agree with us on that. Our Title IIA grant that we used for professional development for staff is $1,356 less than it was last year. So that amount for this year is $53,356. For example, we have, 300 teachers in the district. That money is supposed to support conferences that they attend or consultants that we bring in to work on mental health issues, diversity and inclusion, anything to that sort. So you can see that we are very disappointed when that decreases. The last grant, entitlement grant, is the Title IVA grant. This is a newer grant. It was implemented in 2018. Again, we utilize this for professional development, and this is $10,789 less than it was last year. So this year we are receiving $10,000 flat for that grant. So I just wanted to share that news with you. It is about 10,000, I'm sorry, 10,000, about little less than 20,000 less than last year. Are there any questions about that? No? Okay, so I started with that, but then I wanted to end on a positive note that our kindergartners and preschoolers first day was today. Unfortunately, due to the middle school early dismissal, I was not able to get over there to see them in action, but I cannot wait to see them. I had a few people send me pictures of their kids getting ready for kindergarten. I tweeted one of them. It's just great to see our youngest learners in our buildings, and I can't wait to feel the energy at our 3 PK-2 schools with our littles in session. So congratulations to our staff for welcoming them back and having a successful first day. Congratulations to our kids, obviously, for making it through, and a special congratulations to our parents that are sending their kids off for the first time. So that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you.
Michelle, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I do have one announcement.
Yeah.
I would, it doesn't pertain to all schools, but it is a significant announcement. We did have Mr. Siliberto, who is the assistant principal with the middle school. He did move on to another leadership position in a different district. And so because of the time of year, we really, of course, want to get the most qualified candidate as a new assistant principal at the Easton Middle School. So in the meantime, we have hired an interim assistant principal. His name is, oh, I'm sorry, I just got a text and it distracted me. His name is Jim Nacino. He is he is a retired educator of many, many years, most recently at in Lexington and Wayland. We are very excited to have him. He has jumped in with both feet and has met all the kids and has discussed his hopes and desires and vision for this year. He's definitely not taking it on like an interim who's here for the short term. He wants to make an impact, and we're very excited to welcome Mr. Nacito, and I hope parents will reach out to him and meet with him, because he's very excited to meet everyone in our community. So just wanted to note that.
All right, thank you. School committee notes. Caroline?
I hope you'll indulge me, but I wasn't going to go into detail about this, but I did read this really interesting article, New York Times, August 18th, 2021. It was a quite detailed piece about wearing masks for children by Judith Denovich, who is a research psychologist who studies the cognitive and social development of children. And the title of the piece is actually wearing a mask can help your child learn. I mean, that was actually the title, but the first name in the title is actually. So, but one of the things that she talks about, she's done extensive research, is that there's really good reason to believe that wearing a mask at school will actually improve certain social and cognitive skills that children have. Everyone knows they're kind of inconvenient. Certainly they're more burdensome for some people than others, but she made the point that learning to communicate is a lot more complicated than just watching people's mouths and so on. She said, it turns out that looking at eyes is at least as important, possibly more, than looking at mouths to understand whom you're looking at, what they're trying to convey. She talks about the fact that eye tracking research shows that by the age of 2, typically developing children spend almost twice as much of their time looking at adult speakers' eyes as at their mouths. And in fact, children with a stronger capacity to discern people's thoughts and emotions based on their eyes alone exhibit greater social emotional intelligence. And children rely on other cues, such as prosody. Now, I had to look up that word. Maybe everybody else knows what it means, but I did not. It means patterns of stress and intonation in a language. But children rely on those cues, prosody, gesture, and context, to figure out what new words mean and what other people are thinking. Sometimes those cues are subtle, but her contention is that a classroom full of people wearing masks is a great opportunity for children to practice paying attention to those cues, such as a peer's tone of voice or a teacher's body language. She is convinced that that wearing masks actually helps children pay more attention to their own bodies and their physical behaviors. And she makes the point that keeping a mask on over the course of a school day, I'm reading because I will never remember all of these points, but just spontaneously. But anyway, over the course of the day involves the kind of self-control and self-regulation that many children find challenging. And she, one of her final points was that extensive research on self-control and self-regulation suggests that children who master the skills needed to keep their masks on will grow up to be better at achieving their long-term goals, solving problems, and handling stressful situations. I do think that, we don't always consider that something that we pretty much perceive as kind of a negative can actually have very positive elements as well. So I just thought I would encourage people, if they want to look for that article. As I said, it was August 18th in the New York Times. I could not figure out a way with my device to send a link to people. But I'm sure if people Google it, it's Judith Denovich, Denovitch. And it's a lot more extensive than the brief overview that I gave, but I would encourage people to read that because it was hopeful. It was, kind of like something that we consider a pain actually may have extensive benefits for our children.
Thank you.
That's it. I muted myself before I said that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Caroline. Jackie.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Nancy?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. Jen?
No updates tonight, thanks.
Ooh. Wow. Great. I have nothing either. So I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session, and we will return to open session. for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the Easton Educators Association, Units A, B, and paraprofessionals. And in my opinion, having this discussion in public would be detrimental to the bargaining position of the school committee. Do I have a second?
Wiseman, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, excellent. And we will be back. All right, guys.
Just to clarify, you'll be back for a potential vote only. There are no further agenda items.
Other than correct. think we have everyone back, right? Okay. So, for item 14, I am going to make a motion to table the vote. And while we have a consensus, we are waiting for the final feedback from our attorney. And we thought we would have that for tonight, and that has not come back yet. So for now, I'm making a motion to table the actual vote to our next meeting, which would be September 30th.
Michelle, did you specify what the actual vote would have been about in your motion?
I did not. The vote to accept the MOA for Easton Educators Association Units A, B, and paraprofessionals. Thank you, Caroline.
Oh, O'Neill second. Oh, no, we're not voting. Sorry, I tricked myself.
Table it, Caroline. That's
right.
The motion.
You're right. Yes. O'Neill second then. Yes.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
Luca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Great, thank you. And before we adjourn, the next meeting will be September 30th at 6:30. Correct?
If we are able to get that last legal determination really quickly, we may ask for you to have a meeting just for the vote, but I will let you know about that.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Star, so moved.
O'Neill second.
All right, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
Luca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Have a good week, everyone, and a weekend.